Aaron here for Truthstream Media and our sister site nutritionalanarchy.com, and people have been asking for a garden update, so I'm going to show you what's going on. Last night was the hardest freeze of the winter here in the first week of March since November. Extremely cold night, everything froze, but I'm getting ready for the spring garden, and I've dug up all these post holes because I'm going to put in raised beds and expand the stuff that I have been growing. Right here is what's left of what was a fenced in ground garden. I added a bunch of soil amendments last year, and we very successfully raised some green beans here, both pole beans and bush beans, and over here some different types of squash and some stuff like that. The okra didn't work, but maybe this year it will. There's one of the cedar posts we're going to put in, and I'll show you the other stuff that worked, but I'm going to expand out this way too and put in some raised beds here. I think about 60 foot of them. Right here was the crop of the year, the one that I really didn't care very much about, the Daikon Radishes, and I just grew more of them than I could even eat. A lot of them are still in the ground after a few months there, and they grew up 3-foot shoots and went to seed, which is really interesting, but they're supposed to help build the soil. The potatoes that I tried to raise in the ground ended up not working out because the freeze killed them, and the first 2 freezes they came back for, but the 3rd freeze they never came back. So we're going to do something else with that bed, especially once we raise them up. Right here you'll see the cabbages that didn't grow so well. They were transplanted. They actually were growing, but they've been continuously eaten by the rabbits that are in this area, which is one reason I want to put in the raised beds. They've been munching on those and munching on them, so they never quite grew as well as what you're going to see over here. The Napa Cabbage, imported from either China or different parts of Asia, a little bit different from your Eastern Europe cabbage, but still very nutritious. Here's those right here. The Napa Cabbages have grown enormously, and they are beyond ready to harvest. In fact, they also went to seed, which a lot of these brassica plants in the same family as broccoli and kale and all these, they often go to seed when it gets cold. But these 2 Napa cabbages just grew tremendously, and they were transplants I bought at the store. Everything else here was planted from seed. This broccoli plant doesn't look like much because, first of all, it froze last night and it was under a sheet, and it's still kind of reviving in the sun a little bit. It'll come back. But these wilty heads did make broccoli, and right here was the main broccoli head, and it went to seed, but when I cut it off, the broccoli grew all these side shoots, which is pretty cool. And these are all good to eat, really. They survived the Texas heat. This plant stayed alive all this time, and then when it got cold this winter, produced the broccoli heads that you know and love. And this one also did survive the Texas heat all this time, and just now started making its crop. It has a beautiful fractal spiral, a wonder of nature. It grows in that wonderful pattern. That right there is Romanesco Broccoli. And it hasn't grown very big, but I just find it so miraculous. It's really the main reason I grew it. It tastes a lot like cauliflower. It's a cousin of cauliflower. And I just think it's absolutely amazing. Here's a smaller green kale. And these are collards, I think, which have done pretty well in this garden. And over here we also have some red kale. And this has gotten pretty woody, stemmy, but it's been this mesclun salad mix. That's good because you just come and you cut it and it grows back and it grows back again, and you keep getting salad out of it. So I'm going to plant a bigger volume of that this year, I think. It's kind of a cool crop, but we have time for a spring. And here's more of this Romanesco that just popped up and made these amazing little designs. I've been harvesting these leaves continuously, eating them, very nutritious. Here's a little bit of the frost damage just from the last night or 2, but they've been basically very healthy. And right here is Swiss chard, one of the healthiest crops you'll find anywhere, incredibly dense nutritional value, and I think they're beautiful too. big leaves. I'm going to continue to grow those. Some of the stuff that didn't work this year were the beets and the carrots. Only a few of them sprouted, and those that did sprout got eaten by probably the rabbits. They were also on a plot that was on the side of the house that didn't have direct sunlight until midway through the day, so it's probably another reason. But you can see a lot of the store-bought soil and amendments like vermiculite that I'm getting together to build the spring garden beds. There's some of the cedar post and the concrete I'm getting ready. Right here next to my worm bin and under all this clutter, because I'm getting a lot of stuff ready, is the potato box I built. I'm going to try one of these vertical potato boxes. You fill in the soil, you plant the seed potatoes, and they gradually grow up, and you add these boards on as the potatoes grow. It grows up the box and theoretically grows potatoes at every vertical layer on the way up. So right here is the top of my worm bin, and I've been harvesting these worms, beautiful little creatures, and then creating black gold worm castings, which are just amazing for the garden. Very great organic amendment, especially since I only put in there the organic produce that comes from our kitchen waste, and then dried leaves and the like. And it's going to go great with a little bit of store-bought organic soil, and also a lot of horse manure compost that's absolutely guaranteed not to contain any city sludge or anything like that. You see back here behind the potato box, I've got some basic 4x2 frames that I'm going to turn into cucumbers and add trellises to. And then over here, behind this clutter, I've got another little sprouting area. I've made another sprouting area, and I put some makeshift foil reflectors to increase the light. And this experiment, we'll see how it plays out. It's Moringa Seeds, and I think they just haven't sprouted yet after 10 days because it's still pretty cold. And they require pretty warm temperatures. And right here I've got some dandelions sprouting under this light. And these I'm very excited about. These are cuttings from a tree collard, sometimes known as a tree kale. And they're from the same family, but they're a different type of plant. They're perennial, and once you get them growing, they will last anywhere from 3 to 20 years and produce collard-like leaves all year round, very nutritious, and they're even tolerant of Texas heat. You can see why some of these other tree collards have not started growing leaves. This one right here has, which is a sign that it's also starting to develop roots, and it's been here about 3 weeks now. It's going to need at least 6 weeks, but probably more like 2.5 months. But once it does, it's going to be ready to go out in the garden, and it's going to grow into a tree-sized structure. It can actually grow very tall, up to 18 feet, I think. And it's going to produce more than enough of these collard leaves for the whole family. And then I'll be able to make cuttings and share with other people too. This tree collard doesn't produce seeds, but people have propagated it through these cuttings, which is a great idea. Right here I've got the sprouts started for spring transplanting. Never done transplants before, been reading about it, but I'm raising them here in this aeroponic garden, the one put out by Miracle Grow, Aero Garden Extra, which is really nice. It's got an LED light, and I put aluminum foil around it for extra light reflection. And I've got 66 plants growing here for transplant, and almost all of them are doing pretty good. They've got a little sponge medium in there. I've got some heirloom tomatoes here. Got some crimson clover, strawberry spinach. I got a couple different lettuce blends, some red romaine, a mesclun salad. Right here in red, if you could see that, I've got some amaranth growing. Off to the side on the right, I've got some celery. And they're still pretty small, so we'll see how they do. These big ones here are a variety of cucumber I'm going to try in the garden. I've got several vertical trellis gardens I'm setting up for spring. And there's some Swiss chard in there, some bell peppers that are starting to grow. And we've also got some basil, parsley, cilantro, and other herbs. And when the time is right, I'm going to harden these off by giving them just a little bit of outdoor exposure for few hours at a time, then gradually more and more and then supposedly, so say the experts, they will be ready to transplant directly into the garden. It'll be interesting to see how they transition from having a water and air-based nutrient solution to being directly in the soil, which will be their final destination, hopefully.